Welcome back, everyone. In this video, I'm going to be talking about some strategies that I used recently to ensure a successful, fun, energizing, and meaningful group drumming experience. So about a week ago, I was facilitating a drum circle at a summer camp. It was mostly adults, about 40 to 50 participants in this circle. And there was a woman who brought the drums, so I didn't have to deal with any of that. But I want to share with you some of my strategies that I feel create a sense of ownership, of participation, of appropriate, level of activity for people, something that works for everyone, ways to involve people and in a very gentle way without putting people on the spot, ways to create variety, ways to hold space for things that could even be a little bit sensitive for some people, and also just how to acknowledge everyone and bring a community together in a way that is facilitative and not directing, not telling people what to do, but inviting people to do things that they want to do for themselves, if that makes sense. Okay, so, and I may be leaving some things out, but I've got a lot of things in my notes right here, so I'm just gonna go through this list and invite you to consider adopting some of these strategies for yourself in your own way with whoever you tend to serve. And just one more thing before I start. It doesn't matter if you consider yourself a group drumming facilitator or community drumming facilitator or not. You might find yourself in a position where somebody asks you to facilitate some sort of music making, and it might be unexpected or might be last minute. So just, carrying some of these strategies and ideas in the back of your mind is not a bad idea, because you never know where you're going to end up. Now, if you are an official, group drumming facilitator, then this is certainly for you. You're in the right spot. But I would say even if you're not expecting to have to do that or you're not planning on it, not a bad idea to have a few ideas just in your back pocket, because you never know. All right, so the first thing is that when everybody sits down, everybody's got an instrument and they're ready to play. I'll do one of two things. Either I just start playing, like playing a beat or something, and people will just join in naturally, and I think that's a great way to do it without talking. You don't have to talk. In fact, I think people talk too much, especially when music making is involved. Sometimes people just want to play. You don't need to say anything. People know how to do it, right? Presumably, most people know what to do with a rattle or a cowbell or shaker, drum, whatever. And so there's that, just start, right? You don't have to have a plan. You don't have to make announcements. One step down from that is something that I did recently in this event, which is I just ask who's got the beat, who's ready to go, who's got the rhythm that they just can't keep inside anymore, And in that way, they can start themselves with just a nudge from me. But the important thing here, the important concept, is that I'm asking the group to lead themselves right from the beginning. All right, I'm not starting and saying, everybody do this. I'm not, getting into the center or anything. I did everything I did from as a participant in the circle. And so that's important when you believe or that your participants have they have enough knowledge and background and capability to do that on their own. Now, they may not. They may need more guidance and instruction, and if they do, that's fine. You can provide that. But if they don't need it, I would rather have them, lead themselves. Because there's usually some people that have some idea of what they want to play. They're probably going to already be doing it. So all I have to do is just gesture, not point, but gesture towards somebody who's already doing something. Because usually, and this has been my experience, that if you have 40 people or 50 people sitting down with instruments, somebody or a few people are going to be playing something. And you can just gesture to that and then align with that, synchronize with that, and it just will start. The music will start. So you don't have to do anything particularly, structured or formal to help the group start themselves. They're probably already going to be trying to start, and you just can draw attention to whatever's happening and put some energy behind it. align with it, and off you go, and you're good. So from there, I'd say, most of the time when I'm facilitating, and I want to delineate the true essence of facilitate, which means to make something easier, to help support, right, from the bottom up, not from the top down. I want to delineate that from guided interactive drumming, for example, which is more top down, or a drum class, or a drum lesson, or a play along, or a rhythm game, or something else where there is more structure. But if we're really talking about a drum circle, the idea of a drum circle is that it's co-created by the participants. So I want to honor that and just take a back seat, and I don't want to do any more than I need to do for it to be successful. And I really want the participants to always feel like this is their circle. They can play whatever they want, and I'm just going to be in the background and be off to the side and just kind of like support them, all right? So how do I do that? Well, the key, or one of the keys, I think, and it's super important, you guys, because music is sound, so we need to listen. So I'll just sit there and kind of listen to what's going on, do a scan and sort of see what people are doing, and then just play something supportive, which is usually just a steady rhythm, steady beat. That's it. It's very simple. Once if that's okay, if things are going okay at that point, and I feel like, okay, I don't have to play just a steady rhythm, I can change what I'm doing a little, and then I can connect with individuals through a technique we call synchronization or matching. I can echo people or synchronize with them. In other words, I can play what that person is playing, or I can play what that person is playing, and thereby I can bring their voices out. I can bring whatever they're playing out more because I'm adding to it, right? I'm adding body and substance to what they're doing. And so it raises their presence in the music. And I find that doing that will promote some sort of change, because if I'm doing what they're doing and then one other person adds to what they're doing, now there's three people doing what one person's doing or what one person was doing, all of a sudden that has more influence. That rhythm or that effect or that tone or that pitch or whatever it is, timbre, now it's more influential, and as a result, the music will change. So you don't have to make the music change. You can just help the music change, right? And that is really facilitating, because you're just taking something that's already there, which means it's valid for that group, right? Because it's coming from them, and you're amplifying it, and thereby, changing the effect of it, and then things just change from there. And so if you repeat that process of just always kind of tuning in, listen, look, tune into what people are doing, and then connect with it, the music will naturally evolve and change. Now, while that's happening, you may need to also go back to a steady beat or whatever, push the rhythm, because look, 40, 50 people who don't play drums, or not necessarily, musicians full-time, and they're doing it for fun, usually you're going to experience what I would just call entropy, right? In the form of things are going to slow down, a little energy, you're going to have some energy drain, typically. Not always, not with little kids, not with kids, or any age kids for that matter, but typically things will start to what we call drag, right? Have a little slowdown. So you might need to put some energy into bumping up the tempo. That can be kind of covert in the form of gently kind of nudging the rhythm along, or it can be more overt in the form of, okay, let's go, let's speed up, and playing louder. And yes, that is more directive, and it's a stronger form, but it's still facilitative if you're helping people do what they're trying to do, right? Which is play together and play in time. So speeding up, not necessarily, it's not necessarily directive if it's coming from a place of support, if that makes sense, all right? One of the things I did in this particular circle, and I've done before, is when there's a natural pause in the music and you have a time to just say hello and welcome people and whatever, make an announcement or two, as I suggested that people at some point stand up and take a different seat, move to a different spot in the circle. And I kind of joke around. I say, you can just get up, leave your instrument behind, go over to somebody else and say, give me that instrument. I'm kidding, of course. But you could suggest, you could either take your instrument with you, find an empty seat, or you could get up and say, offer your instrument to someone else, or make eye contact and say, hey, come over here and I'll go over there. However it gets done, changing your position in a circle is a way to refresh it. It gives people a different perspective. It gives people a different auditory experience, a different visual experience. They're seeing and making eye contact with different people, kind of connecting with different people. So I think all of that is good. And I just say you can change your seat anytime, whenever you feel like it, all right? It's just a simple way of creating variety and helping people add variety to their experience as individuals. All right, we're moving through the list. Another thing that came up in this particular circle was it was somebody's birthday on that day. And so you can, ask, is anybody celebrating anything today or this week? And that's also a nice moment that you can, during a talking part, maybe sing somebody happy birthday or a song, or just acknowledge people, or, drum for a certain person or group of people who are celebrating something. And we're going to come back to that idea later. So that's a real simple way to add variety and honor people, make connections between people, have them make connections between themselves, get to know people more. And you can use that same sort of idea with people that have certain hobbies, and you can say, who likes this or who likes that? Tell me something you love to do. And then who else likes that? And help your group get to know each other in that way. So another way to help people kind of bring out the playfulness, and this particular person who brought all the drums also brought scarves, which you guys know I'm a fan of, and a parachute, one of those, like not a actual parachute, but the kind that you would use in a classroom or something, like for little kids, multicolored parachute. And those are fun because, for a couple of reasons. One is that they're just fun to play with, right? Scarves, ribbons, parachutes, they're very visual, they're tactile. So they are great play objects on the one side. On the other side, it gives people a chance to do something and be involved and be creative and give their hands a break. Because the fact is, especially if you have older adults, people get tired. Their hands start hurting after like 5-10 minutes because they're not drummers. They're not full-time drummers. So even though everybody wants to play a drum, right off the bat, it's not something they realize pretty soon that, oh my God, this is like my hands are getting red and I need to do something else. So it gives people a chance to do that, give their hands a break, go play with a scarf or parachute or whatever you have available. And then while those people are playing with the parachute, for example, the people can drum to whatever they see. So if the parachute goes up, usually people will rumble or whatever, and people are running around or doing this and that, and just being playful. And as soon as one person gets in the middle and starts playing with whatever, usually a couple more, 3 or 4 more, will get in and start playing. So that brings variety. It brings playfulness. It gives people a break from drumming, and it just kind of keeps things moving forward. And you can also change the rhythm to reflect whatever the mood is that people are expressing through their kind of movement or dance, whatever they're doing, their playfulness. So another thing that I did in this particular circle was I created some space that you could kind of, it was more solemn because my intention was to create an environment where we could honor people who have passed on. And so this is, it can be a little tricky, but in this case it was lovely. What I did is I modeled that kind of interlude, and this is about a little more than halfway through the time now. So when we were in a place where I could talk, I just suggested that we do some intentional drumming. You could call it devotional drumming or remembrance drumming or whatever you want to call it. What I did was pretty simple. I had a mic set up in the center of the circle, and I just invited people to, whenever they felt like it or if they felt like it, to come up to the mic and just say the name Could be the first name or the first and last name of anyone who they wanted to devote their drumming to and their intentions, or just to acknowledge as a loved one who had passed on. And that's it. And then they can go back and sit down. And then and then the only other part to this was the second part, was when somebody goes up to the mic, everybody would go to like body percussion or just something super low level. You can say fingertips or air drumming or whatever. I think fingertips might be good, or body percussion, because it keeps the rhythm going. And the reason I do that is so we can hear the names of the people, and then we go back to drumming. And that you can just, once it starts, it's just open, and anybody can go up and say the name of a person or people, and then thereby we create this kind of devotional space. And it was very emotional for a lot of people. It was really beautiful. And that can also be part of something that you facilitate for people. But it was very simple, and it was really sweet and effective and touching. And there were, a lot of tears that were shed, and that's okay. And sometimes we need to facilitate that too. It's not just always high energy, are we having fun yet kind of thing. It can be something like that is, not easy, but I think necessary in our lives to acknowledge, maybe some sadness. And now, so that happened for a little while. How do we come out of that, and how do we get back on track? So that's always an interesting question. Is now, you can imagine it could be kind of, let's call it down energy, right? Low energy and a little bit of sadness. Now, while that's good to express, the question is, how do we transition? So I just decided, and this is just spur of the moment, I went in and just kind of sang the end of Aloha Oi. So I sang Aloha Oi, until we meet again. Just to shift the energy back up into neutral. And then I asked people, what's something you're celebrating? Who has something they're celebrating? And then people could just shout out or talk about whatever, and people would say, well, we're celebrating our 20th year wedding anniversary, or I'm celebrating my grandchild's birth, or celebrating this or celebrating that. And so that kind of shifted the energy, back into a direction that, felt more buoyant and had a little more energy, uplifting energy to it. And then we just played. And then the last thing that you could also try, and I think this happens organically a lot of the time, is what I would just call a dance party, right? So I had some more of the my drummer friends there. And so what you could do for this is, if there's some people who are stronger drummers, you kind of get those people in an ensemble. So bring everybody together, and then those people play for everyone else who now are on their feet. And we moved the chairs back, we moved the drums back. And I also know that some of the people in the group can facilitate a dance. So they did. In this case, there was a couple people who could lead a Native American style roundhouse dance, which is kind of a snaking, dance that goes around with a leader and everybody kind of snakes around. It's really fun and simple, very simple. And that's kind of what they ended with. And there was, I think, a song that was accompanying it, and it was really nice, really fun, and it felt like a appropriate way to close it out. It was more celebratory. It was on your feet, dancing. Everybody could go into the center at the end, and it was just like this culmination, celebration. And then that's it. And then you thank everybody, acknowledge everybody who brought the instruments, who's celebrating what, who organized it, et cetera, et cetera. Thank everybody for dancing, thank everybody for drumming, and close it out. And so that's what I have for you in terms of strategies and some advice. In this video, I just wanted to make this video because I know some of you do facilitate group drumming, and that's just one example of a few things that came up in this last experience. So just to remind you, facilitating is being of service. You can be of service, you can be a strong presence, but you can also be in the background and be supportive at the same time. It doesn't have to be look at me and do what I say, all right? Sometimes that's okay, but a lot of times you don't need to do that. And so this way, I feel my intention is to share some things with you that are, more covert, and that, again, where we started, that give people the impression and the sense that they are really driving this experience themselves, because that is the essence. When you call something a drum circle, that's really the guiding, that's your guiding star, is this is their circle and I'm here to help them. All right, so I hope that's helpful, you guys. Thanks for being patrons. Thanks for listening. Leave your helpful comments below, and I'll see you in another lesson.